Syracuse shocks everybody, 31-7 over Louisville. Oh my gosh, Garrett Schrader ranked number 1 this week in terms of PFF graded quarterback. I mean, this is La La Land. I can't believe it. On
Wake up, Bones. It's a Monday episode. Let's ride.
Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine with you on your Monday episode of Locked On Syracuse. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Syracuse won. Nobody thought they would except for Lee Corso, and they did it. They proved him right. I couldn't be more amped. And guess what? I have been incredibly overconfident in this team for the last week. They've done something dangerous, and they have fueled my confidence. They have justified my confidence. What a win. 31-7, Syracuse beats Louisville, and Louisville didn't even look like they had a chance.
No, they had their foot on the gas pedal from the get-go, went out, looked great, did some things well, did a lot of things well, I will say. And Bones, you got to take your credit here. You say Lee Corso is the only one that thought Syracuse would win. You were nonstop. They're going to win this game. They're going to win this game. I don't know why, but they're going to win this game. I'm overly confident. That's all I heard from you over the last week. Here we go. You are 100% correct. This is the reverse of what you've seen in this Louisville-Syracuse series over the last 3 years. And, for these guys, especially this older crew that has worked through some of the losses, that has experienced the number of those embarrassments, as we said, 71-3, the combined score over the last 2 seasons, to come out and get a statement win against a very, very good quarterback. All right. We cannot deny that. They shut down an outstanding quarterback, and they come out with a big time win in a big time game in one of their biggest season openers that you can find in the last couple decades.
Yeah, dude. I mean, when they came out and they had the ball first, of course, and the offense came out, you didn't know exactly what they were going to run first. You get like a Sean draw, and then Schrader drops back, and I thought, oh no, like this is the first pass. Like, how's he going to look? And it looked like not terrible. And I was like, oh, don't tell me he can throw now, because that changes everything.
Cordy Jackson on a little curl.
Good. That was crazy. Devon Cooper was catching passes. Courtney was catching passes. Aronde Gadsden. Oh my goodness. They used the tight end. The offense was everything we could want and more, because that's what happens. Louisville dared Syracuse to throw, and it did. They came out and they proved that they could. I don't know what happened to Schrader, if it was confidence he needed. Maybe just having a year under his belt was enough. Maybe he just got killed over the summer by the defense in training camp. I don't know what happened, but he came out a new quarterback, and he was fantastic. And it offered Sean a way to be open. I mean, if you have to respect the pass for Syracuse, you then have to leave Sean open on some plays, because you have to then guard the receivers, which is not something we saw pretty much ever last year. So the offense is revitalized. You have something new in point scoring capability, and now you look towards the defense and see what's going on there. They were fantastic. They got beat on one trick play and then stopped them at the goal line.
Yeah, goal line stand on that play. Outstanding. And to go back to what you're saying with Garrett and his confidence, I mean, he really came out and just played a sound, complete game yesterday, right? 18 for 25 for 237 and 2 touchdowns, and then 105 yards on the ground, or 95 yards net on the ground. But he just had it. Like, it was so simple. It really was. We talked about going into this game, last year, how simply Malik Cunningham threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for another one. I felt like that's kind of what you were getting out of Schrader. Yes, there were a couple of flashier plays, when he breaks out and runs, or a couple of longer passes. But even, his long pass to Tucker is just on a screen pass. He really just played that simple game, really, really composed, not trying to do too much. And I think that's where you saw, him really start to excel. And as Dino said in the press conference after, this is so complimentary. When you can get that passing game going, it opens up so many opportunities for A, Schrader as a mobile quarterback, and B, that guy that you're throwing a Heisman campaign for, and Sean Tucker, right? Dino says after the game, it is drastically different stopping Sean Tucker when you can pack the box with 10 defensive players, as opposed
Yeah.
to when this field is spread out and you've got to make one-on-one tackles in open field. It's really, really difficult. And I think because they're passing the ball more, and because they can pass the ball more and thus spread the field out a lot more, Sean's going to get his fix and his fill a little bit easier this year, which can leave him, so much room for having these big games, right? He runs for 98 and 85 more on the ground. So he's putting up 170 and change, 180 and change in his first game. Like, he really looked sound as well. This Robert and I offense, it had something. And you were saying, right, when you look at the tight end being used, the number of receivers that they were throwing to, my big gripe last year was put a guy in motion, please. The amount of information you can steal from putting someone in motion, and just, the number of other options that you can have in doing so. Gadsden was a guy that I saw in motion a good amount, a couple other guys in motion. It opens up so many opportunities, and it was really, really nice and a relief to be able to watch, what looked like a competent offense out there, and play calling that made sense. And, yes, you're taking shots and maybe they don't work every time, but you're trying some things. And that's something that's really cool, is that when you have the sound offense that Robert and I have sort of instilled already, then you can get a little bit trickier or get a little bit flashier and try a few things when the spot is right, as opposed to when everything has to be focused on, can we sneak a few yards? Can we sneak this? Can we sneak that? When the offense is flowing a little bit, you can pick your spots. And I think that's something that we'll be able to continue to see. And I'm fired up with this offense right now.
Here's a stat for you. Tucker in this game, 6 receptions. That's a career high. He only had 20 receptions all of last year. So
Yeah.
in that number, you can kind of see where the difference lies in terms of what the offense is going to offer this year compared to what it offered last year. We heard a little bit about that from Stephen Bailey in the preseason, but now we got to see it, and Tucker did his damage in the aerial attack. He didn't necessarily break off for a long run. He did it from a screen pass. Like you said, 55-yard screen pass. He broke it to the house. His rushing touchdown was on the goal line. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad that they are taking advantage of this weapon in Sean Tucker, and they're doing whatever they can to get him the ball in open space. Because like Dino said in the post-game press
Yeah.
conference, I don't know if everybody heard it, but he was basically saying, it changes the game when Sean is out there in open space, and now you have to tackle him in open space compared to right behind the offensive line. It's a different story. It's a totally different thing. And Sean can move.
Yeah.
He can play. He took wide receiver snaps in training camp. Like, he can do it all. So him being that guy and so versatile within the offense is just crazy for this team.
Yeah, and then you look at, that first drive, I'll go back to here just because I think it's that perfect example. When you've, sort of shown and brought up, and in preseason media and stuff like that, you hear Sean talking about how he's going to get the ball and be more involved in the passing game and things of that nature. You see on that first drive, he pops out for a little swing route, and the Louisville defense collapsed on him pretty quick. And you as you have to, when you know how explosive and versatile he is and how they want to incorporate him in the passing game. And in doing that, leaves I think it was Arondé Gadsden on a little out route or something like that, wide open at like 14, 15 yards downfield. because Sean is going to be so valuable and so much more involved in this passing game, it's going to create so much more open space as defenses have to adjust. Players are going to have to pick him up, and you're going to start to see gaps. I know that's something that, we talked about with Stephen Bailey and how they have a lot of running back options in terms of, where Sean goes. And if he sees this, he can do option A. And if he sees this, he can do option B, and how they really can just adjust on the fly. And I think that is going to create so many opportunities for Syracuse, and that you're going to get, better looks and one-on-one coverage and a little bit more open space in throwing to a receiver on the sideline. And I think that is really a huge benefit of, involving Sean a lot more, or involving the running back as a whole a lot more in the passing game, is what it can do to open up space for other receivers. And then, maybe you'll throw a screen pass and Sean goes whoop, 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 and then runs for 55 yards and a touchdown, because that helps too. But I mean, there's so much benefit to that increased involvement with Sean and the running back as a whole in the passing game.
All right, we'll talk defense after the break. Let me read a quick ad here from Built Bar. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. They've got a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of preparing it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat. Or if you're Owen Valentine, you find a good hiding place and you just hoard them all for yourself. Like all Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. What's great about Built is that all of their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKEDON15. All righty. Matt Bonaparte, Owen Valentine, back with you talking Syracuse's big 31-7 win in the opener. Let's just talk about, by the way, for a quick second, how Syracuse now has a conference victory. Like, that's crazy.
Outside of 2018, they have never had more than two. And that's one in the first game.
Nuts.
In the first week.
And another thing they have the ability to do, the potential to do, and probably will do since last time since 2018 is go 2-0 to start a year. They haven't done that since 2018.
I just, I want to throw this out there, and, I'm going to go macro for a second before we go back into, some of the more specifics of this game. The confidence difference at 1-0 with an ACC win going into week 2 against a UConn team that, even though, maybe they looked a little better than we might have thought in their first week, they're still, they should be what exactly you think UConn is. So you're looking to go 2-1 like that confidence boost mentally, right? You know what lingers on that schedule. You know the stretch that you have to play in the middle of the season. To be 1-0 with a great chance at going 2-0 and then coming back into the Dome for Purdue, and hopefully the Syracuse faithful come out and support a 2-0 team in the Dome and get loud and get rowdy, because you saw how that could help. That confidence boost for the fans, for the players, in trying to get to that 6-6 threshold, 1-0 makes 6-6 an absurdly amount more manageable than 0-1 with that 1-1, and you're going in to play a Purdue team that looked pretty good this week, to be completely honest. It's going to be a tough game. So to, almost not that you want to have it as a fallback, but the fact that if you drop to Purdue, or if whatever happens, can be 2-1 now as opposed to 1-2, that is gigantic for
We
this
did a
entire
whole
season.
episode last month in August about how big of a win this would be if
Yeah.
they got it. And they got it. And I don't think,
Rightfully so.
like, it is crazy that they won this game. And it changes the trajectory of the season, like you said,
Yeah.
like so drastically. All right. Anyway, let's talk some defense because that's what we're here to do.
Oh, yeah.
The defense was fantastic. Like
Outstanding.
seriously, again, they got beat on one trick play and that hurt, but then a goal line stop made it
Okay.
fine. I think the first thing we got to talk about is the Garrett pick. Like
Oh
that
my
was insane. You were
It was
in the
so
dome. What did
pretty.
it feel like? What was it like when he picked that ball off?
First of all, I mean, the dome was rocking last night. It really was. It was really cool to see that crowd in week 1 get loud. I think it was Louisville's opening drive. On 3rd down, that place got loud, false start, and that was what you needed to really solidify that this crowd was going to have a day. An opening drive, false start. But that play, I like to, I had seats in the 300s last night. I was bouncing around from spot to spot, trying to pick in, see some different locations, see some different atmospheres. I was standing in the front row of the student section for that play, and it was incredible. Just, you sort of knew when that ball was thrown and you saw Garrett where he was. I was like, oh, wow, Garrett's got this. Garrett's got this. Garrett's got this. Bang. And he makes an unbelievable pick in the corner. And Dino said in the press conference last night that that was, one of the things that they had been burned on
Yeah.
in the past, that same route, that same play type. And so that just sort of, I feel like that is that not just a cherry on top of everything in that win, is that after all that's happened in the last 2-3 years playing Louisville on the road, and rightfully getting embarrassed in those games, it was not good. And you have finally made that adjustment. You figured it out. You knew, and in the film study, you saw this is something that they've done. This is something that has worked. And you figure it out, and the play presents itself, and you make a big boy play in week 1 in your NFL campaign season. That is outstanding. And the place, rightfully so, lit up, and the defense was going nuts on the sideline right in front of me. And everyone in that place was fired up. It was incredible. What a play. And then to have the atmosphere to boot is just, I'll throw another cherry on top of this Sunday. So now there's 2 cherries on the ice cream sundae that we're drafting today.
Yeah. I mean, it was fantastic. That play, at first, when he threw the ball up, I was like, okay, there's the touchdown. Because like Dino said, we've seen that play before.
Yeah.
And then, he was kind of wide open. And then Garrett
Yeah.
just goes, I don't know, Super Saiyan, and goes and he finds that ball, just grabs it out of the stomach of the receiver. Like it was one of the all-time plays I've seen from a Syracuse.
I felt like I was almost wrongfully watching Garrett at the start. I was like, oh, Garrett's got to do it. And then I was like, oh, but maybe Garrett is not. And then I was like, oh, Garrett. And I was like, thank God I watched Garrett the whole way, because you literally got the inside track. I was like, oh my. And
so there was that
he elevated. He elevated.
There was that play. And then there was also, how about Steve Linton in this game?
Oh my God. Dog.
Steve Linton was fantastic in this game. I mean, he was everywhere for Syracuse. A forced fumble, a fumble recovery in week 1. He had a sack, 2 sacks. He was incredible. The guy was an animal, and he had to be, because he had 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. That was what it was. And the forced fumble and the recovery. He was so good. I mean, that guy, he had to be, because everybody was dropping like flies, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And he wasn't even listed on the depth chart. He was the 3rd ranked defensive end, which I don't know how he felt about that, but I can't imagine it was very good. He came out and proved that he should be on the field. That guy was an animal. And when you can trust a guy like that in the depths of your depth chart, that's so huge. Like, that is so huge. He wasn't the only player that was fantastic. There were a bunch of other guys. Marlowe had a crazy game, 2.5 tackles for loss, half a sack, and 10 tackles. Mikel, of course, had a game. How about that sack at the end of the game on Malik? That was like, he wanted that because of the whole quote thing. Like, Malik's putting his quote up in the locker. Like, Mikel's like, I don't care. Spin move, you're on the ground. Like, that was so awesome. Yeah, I mean, like the defense was so good, dude. Like so good.
That was as advertised with this defense. Like it was what you wanted to see, right? You look at Tony White, you look at this defense and the things that you've seen flashes of the past, right? You've seen it at times and tip the cap again to the offense, right? You finally have the offense doing their part on the other side, giving the defense enough rest so that they're not, on their hands and knees gasping for air in the third and fourth quarter, right? Your offense is doing its part to give the defense rest. The defense can finally play, and you've got guys that rose to the occasion. And Steve is that guy today for me. And like really just I am so amazed at like how good of a game he had because I think a lot of guys when that first depth chart comes out and you're not listed you can it mentally hurts and you could talk about that we were talking about before we hopped on Dino's quote about calling a timeout when the quarterback's helmet comes off to avoid Carlos Del Rio Wilson coming in and how that happened to him when he was playing and the confidence sort of just deteriorating from him
Yes, for a
once his
position
coach called
change.
timeout. Yeah, and he asked for a position change because that
I
was how much
suggest
that
if
meant to him.
you should go watch that post game press conference because there was a
Yeah,
lot of good stuff in there from Dino, and that quote was one of them. That story he told about that.
100%. If you're Steve Linton and you don't make the two deep going into week one, you can easily take a hit on your confidence. And to show up in week one and get an opportunity and own that opportunity is absolutely amazing. That is just that I'm so happy for him and excited to see that he rose to the occasion and said, yeah, you know what? Maybe right now you don't think that, but I'm still gonna fight. I'm still gonna compete. And he rose, right? You said it, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a fumble, forced fumble recovery. He was everywhere. He did everything that you needed him to do yesterday, and shows out as I will call him my defensive player of the game, especially given that story and that him just coming in and saying, when it's my turn, let's go. I'm ready. Let's ride when it's time. And he did it. So tip the cap to Steve because that was awesome. But this defense as a whole, I mean, it worked. You hold Malik
Yeah,
Cunningham to 100 and change passing yards, 150 passing yards,
152.
and 34 rushing yards. What was the number
He
that
was
we
nothing.
said was when we recorded was Friday or
Oh
Thursday's episode?
gosh,
Did we
I'll
say
try to find it.
325, 350,
Um,
or did we
we
say 3
said,
touchdowns?
oh my gosh, I can't find it. But
Or did we not even go with that one? That was a discussion we had, right? We were like, if we can, see Syracuse hold Malik Cunningham to under 350 all-purpose yards or under three or fewer touchdowns, then they're in a good position to win this game. What would we have said
guy
Thursday?
didn't
Too?
score,
You
man.
you hold Malik to 150 passing yards, 34 rushing yards, and 0 touchdowns, along with the fact that you picked him off 2 times.
I would think he was like hurt at halftime and didn't play the second half.
Yeah, right? It's incredible to see them come out with that and play as staunch defense as you could find against an offense that is really experienced. We talked about it, right? You have 4 returning O linemen. You bring in a Virginia Tech transfer at center who is very good. You've got preseason All-American players on your offensive line. A guy in Malik Cunningham that is, number 49 on ESPN's top college football players of 2020 or
And they shut him
2022,
down, man.
and you
How
shut
about
him
another
out.
guy, by the way? Just shout out another guy who had a huge game, stepped up. Derek McDonald, former tight end. He
Yes.
comes in, picks a guy off. I mean, that was
Oh,
awesome from Derek to see. That's my guy. And I'm really, really glad he made that play. Okay, let's move on real quick because we're getting up against it here. Time to talk about the negatives of this game.
yeah.
And there were a few. Uh, obviously, 18 freaking penalties was,
Yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
lot of
just
penalties.
brutal. It was seriously brutal. Like, I could not believe it every single time. Kalon Ellis, Vettorello, and Bleish just got hammered by penalties. And it was never Bergeron and Davis. It was always the 3 middle guys. And Vettorello, like, Kalon Ellis and Bleish, I'll give a little bit to because they're new. But, dude, Vettorello, you've been here forever, dude. Like, you have to not. You're the center. How does the center even get called for a false start? I don't understand.
Don't
Like,
you just
he
snap the
got
ball?
called so many times. Snap infraction, false start. Like, what are you doing? I swear, like 10 of those were on Kalon Ellis too. Like, it was brutal. It was really seriously brutal. But credit to Babers for leaving him in and letting him figure it out because
Yeah.
goes back to the confidence thing. But still, like 18 penalties was truly brutal. Like, oh my goodness, terrible, so terrible.
18 for 107.
Come on, and they still only scored once.
107 yards.
How about that?
Yeah, because most of the penalties were on offense.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And Louisville with I think 7 for 50 as well. So there were penalties on both sides.
Yeah,
but
Louisville
I
had
think
penalties too, but like 18, like I think that's a program record. Like I'm like 90% sure it is.
it's a lot of penalties.
Lethal.
I look at that and I'm gonna stay positive today, despite the fact that this is a negative that you had 18 penalties. I think a lot of the penalties were growing pains with the new offense. And the fact that a lot of these guys aren't necessarily used to man in motion and that sort of timing thing because of, what you saw under Sterling Gilbert and the fact that there wasn't motion and you weren't utilizing tight ends. And there was a lot. It's a much more complicated offense in terms of the fact that you are moving guys. And, I think I'll talk about this every show ever. Oronde Gadsden can line up everywhere in that flex tight end spot. And you've got some new timing things. And it is still a new offense for everybody involved on this team. I think a handful of them you can chalk to growing pains a little bit, and I will excuse some. But the O-line, this is your week, right? That was your 1 week of, okay, we're not quite used to playing together with the 5 of us. We're still a little bit new to this gig. You've got some newer faces on that O-line, despite the fact that they have some experience. You've got a little bit of flexibility against UConn. I will excuse a little bit. But this week that we just watched and next week, that's it. You can't be in this penalty. Thank God Syracuse was able to overcome a lot of them because a lot of them could have been drive-ending penalties, in years past or in other situations. So the fact that they overcame them, I guess, is good. But yeah,
really
you've got to fix that.
Lucky. Yeah.
You've got to fix
other
that
thing.
Week.
So there's 2 other things I want to talk about in terms of it, and we're really up against it, so I'm going to get them out quick. But the drops were brutal. Imagine there were no drops in that game. Schrader probably throws for 300 yards or close to it. So you can't be. I mean, it felt to me, and I tweeted this from our account, that it felt like Schrader finally figured out, like, okay, we have an arm now, but now nobody can catch the football. Like, come on. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, come on, guys. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, Devon dropped the ball. Isaiah Jones dropped the ball. Courtney dropped the ball. Like, it was getting ridiculous. So the drops were brutal. Like, they played a really good game, but they have their work cut out for them in practice this week. And then the other thing is the injuries, man. Like, people were dropping like flies. First, Elmore, and that did not look good. He's on crutches.
No.
Then you had Stephon Thompson on crutches. Then Sean went down, and that was scary. You texted me. You're like, I'm in the bathroom. Who's hurt? I was like, oh, no. It's like, it's Sean, man. That was scary, but I think Sean was okay. And then Mike Marlowe was down too, and that was scary. I think Marlowe's going to be okay, but that was a scary one. So it was just everybody was dropping like flies. I don't know what that is. Maybe the training camp or training room. Like, someone's got to figure that out. Like, they can't just be out there getting hammered every week in games.
You can't lose 4 guys a week.
You can't. You cannot. Especially like. Also, I don't know about you, but after it was a done deal that they were going to win the game, like, take Schrader and Tucker out. Like, why are they in the game? Like, I couldn't believe that. Like, Schrader may be fine. Like, you want to get him snaps with the offensive line and whatnot, but like, Sean Tucker did not need to be in that game, like in the fourth quarter at all. Like, it was ridiculous. I mean, put LeQuint in, put Juwan Price in, let them see what they can do. They're going to win, man. Like, don't risk an injury here. You can get hurt on every single play. There's a chance you get hurt every play. And that's look at what Elmore did. Elmore's injury was he was off 50 yards away from the play, and he was just blocking, and his ankle snapped. Like, it can happen any single play. So I don't understand what was going on there. But anyway, that's
Closing
all we
thought
got.
from me.
Okay, go ahead.
Closing thought. Celebrate. The celebration is over when this episode releases. You got work to do. Don't drop a stupid game against UConn, and be ready in 2 weeks to play Purdue.
I agree. They need to come geared up for Purdue. And you know what? I think they will. This is my closing point to react to your closing point. I think they will. And the reason I do is because I think this team has a maturity level that last year's did not. Schrader told us that at the ACC Media Day, and I absolutely believe him, and we kind of saw that. So I think they will. Okay, that's all we got. Thanks for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Matt Bonaparte. That's Owen Valentine. We will talk to you tomorrow.